in the beginning, there are like some mistakes along the way
Correct.
that you made.
Correct.
Yeah. So how has these mistakes kind of shaped how you lead today? If it's possible, maybe you could share a mistake that you made.
Wow, there was lots of mistakes. If you ask me the truth, Indonesia is not for rookie. One missteps and you're done.
But you survived.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Maintenance Maestros, the podcast where innovation strategists and machine whisperers swap war stories and future-proof ideas. Hello everyone. So today we're heading to Indonesia, a country buzzing with Industry 4.0 energy. And joining me is Randy, founder of Rebelware, one of Indonesia's deep tech pioneers that's making factories smarter and more resilient. Alright, so we're going to talk about maintenance in Indonesia, the fight against old school resistance, and what the future looks like when IoT meets reality. Right, so Randy, welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's start with your personal story about Rebelware. How did it come about and what is your story behind it? What problem are you trying to solve?
Okay, so to tell the truth, why I make my own company is because in order to pursue my life dreams, I need a deep tech company. Because in Indonesia, if I would like to pursue a career in research, it's not wise to join a university or wise to join the research institute because the research environment is not as established as Singapore or in Japan. That's why I'm really obsessed with a company that has a really strong in the R&D section. And to tell the truth, our first capital is from my savings of my college. So I'm doing my pocket money saving. I'm doing a part-time job since the first year of my undergraduates until my master's degree. And what kind of problem do we solve in Indonesia? It's about the innovation problem and the automation problem. Because there's some kind of paradox in Indonesia when it comes to automation. As you might know, Indonesia has a very huge population, right? Around 280 million people. But those peoples are not working so efficiently. That's where the automation comes. However, if a common Indonesian or common people hear about automation, what they think is about layoff.
Yeah.
That's what we are trying to solve. We're doing the automation while we improve the life of the common people. That's what we are trying to solve.
Using the technology to
Yes.
make their jobs easier
Yes,
and then they can
correct.
actually expand their skill set.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. So, was there like a specific moment that you knew that you wanted to go into the space? I know you are very enthusiastic about research and all. Like, what was the...
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I first built our own company, what I did first is I contact all of my friends, including my college friends and my rival in the robot competition in Indonesia. In all of my contacts, I offer them all of my knowledge about technology. Luckily, one of the technology that I master is I'm doing a smart lighting system for my undergraduate thesis. And luckily, one of my friends, he is working in one of the Toyota group in Indonesia, and he said his factory is joining a green factory competition. And that's where he told me, hey, if you can build a smart lighting system or if you can build an automation system, please build for us. Because we are trying to win this competition. That's how we start, actually.
Interesting. Okay, so thanks for sharing your story. So I'm sure like in the beginning there are like some mistakes along the way
Correct.
that you made.
Correct.
Yeah. So how has these mistakes kind of shaped how you lead today? If it's possible, maybe you could share a mistake that you made.
Wow, there was lots of mistakes. If you ask me the truth, Indonesia is not for rookie. One missteps and you're done.
But you survived.
Yeah. One of the most common mistakes that we did in our early stage is when we did the pilot project and we are hoping the expansion will come smoothly. In reality, it will not. even though you are successfully deploy your technology in the pilot project, all of the competitors will try all of their efforts to reverse engineering your technology
I see.
to get the expansion project, because it's a common practice in Indonesian corporates that a supervisor or a manager in one company have their own champion, and this champion being nurtured by them. So even though they cannot do it in the past project, because they're being nurtured, they are trained by the supervisors to learn about our technology. And that's one of our fatal mistakes.
Okay.
We 100% trust in our client, and we were hoping if we are deploy our pilot project, if we are doing good in our pilot project, nothing will happen to us. Yeah.
So it didn't scale as intended, right?
Yes.
I see. So how do you overcome that? Since you already, now you learn from that mistake that you made earlier.
Okay. First thing first, every of our technology are being encrypted. So even though they are trying to look into our database, into our servers, it will not make sense unless they have their decryption code.
Okay.
And second one, we are aggressively expanding our network, because in our early stage principle, if we don't have a network, it's okay if we have a good skill. But in Indonesia, you need to have both skill and network. You only have network, but you don't have skill, you cannot get any project. Same, vice versa. If you have only skill but no network, you can have the first pilot project, but the expansion project, the good amount of money, you will not have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think it's very I think it's quite the reality in other countries also. You do need a mixture and a balance between the skill and as well as the network.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about startups in Indonesia in general. So do you think that the most startups in the tech space are actually here to solve a real problem, like yourself, or do you think that they are chasing money or buzzwords?
Okay, so there are lots of startups in Indonesia, and some of them are really good, but some of them are just FOMO, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because in the early day of the startups in Indonesia, hey, what's your job? I'm a startup founder. You feel really handsome. And that's what most people are after. So they're chasing the FOMO. But the one that been chasing a FOMO, most of them are back with their strong network. Meaning they are the son of someone in Indonesia. They are silver spoon and golden spoon. The one that try to solve the real problem, they have the real challenge, because most of these people don't have any strong network at the very beginning, and most of these skill-oriented people, what they trying to do is they try to improve their skills, but they are not really trying to improve their network, and it's their fatal mistake. That's what I said in the earlier.
Yeah.
Indonesia is not for rookie. You need a mixture of both.
Okay. Yeah, so you need to progress along
Yeah.
and you learn from your mistakes.
Yes, correct.
And that's how you can be successful today,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Okay, great. So let's talk about maintenance in Indonesia now. Maybe if you could share how the
Okay.
culture is like in Indonesia, because every country and every city has a different kind of culture.
Okay, so if you may know that a maintenance have three stages, right? Reactive, preventive, and predictive. But before we dig into deeper of each stage, first I would like to mention the type of Indonesia market. We believe in this world there are two types of market: the specialty market and the commodity market. Specialty market means the price doesn't really matter. You can justify it. However, the quality needs to be as high as possible. That's the specialty market. Indonesia, sadly, is the commodity market. Meaning what? Meaning, if you don't have a really good quality, it's okay if it's good enough. But what you need to have is you need to have a lower price as possible. So it's a price war in Indonesia.
Okay.
That's what happened. And if you're talking about the maintenance culture, why Indonesian corporates and Indonesian companies most of them are in the reactive maintenance because they feel it's too expensive to adopt even the preventive maintenance system. Because in the maintenance system, you need to manage service, right? You need to subscribe the system.
Yeah.
And it's an OPEX, the increment in OPEX. Some of the higher supervisor or a higher managerial level, what they see is the short-term impact of their company. But if you're talking about maintenance, we need to see beyond short-term impacts. Yeah, and that's what happened in Indonesia. For example, one machine needs to broken first, then they realize how important the maintenance is. So if you are working in the maintenance sector, you need to first lower your price, and the second, you remind them what is the horror if the machine is become broken. For example, if your machine become broken, you will have a production line stop. And if your production line becomes stop, you will lose a huge amount of revenue. You need to keep remind them all of this in order to succeed in this sector.
The big picture.
The big picture, yes.
But sometimes I think it's also difficult, like depending on the group of audience they are talking to. Like the on-the-ground people, they are more interested in the day-to-day operations. If you want to talk about the big picture, then yes, the owners, the C-suites, then they will consider if they want to invest or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So talking about this on the ground, right? Do you have any funny experience, unexpected thing that you encountered?
Yes, in fact, I have. Let me tell you a story. This is one of my client in Toyota Group in Indonesia. When we succeed in the pilot stage, but the expansion is giving away to our competitor. So the expansion project is being given away to our competitor. But in the middle of the deployment, some of the third-party company sue our customers because they see that the signal is being clashed with their signal. And when they try to find the license of the product, they cannot find it. So long story short, they sue our customers. And because our competitor is not a principal, but they are just a trader, they cannot help much with our client. So our client asked us, hey, can you do anything to prove this is not a fault? We did. We help our customers. We have a special instrument named the Vector Network Analyzer. What it's do is basically it's scanning all of the frequencies from 0 gigahertz until 4 gigahertz. And we see that from our device, the signal is not flashed at all. Meaning they cannot sue because it's not violate any legal laws in Indonesia. That's where our client say, thank you, Revolver, thank you for helping us. And they give us away the next project to us.
Very good. Yeah. So you help them solve their problem. Right? Because then they're like, shame on you, you're a competitor, and then now you have to come back to us. So I was feeling very good about that. Okay, so now talking about like the global best practices, right? So how do you think that Indonesia stacks up? So there's a lot of work talking about like Industry 4.0 and all. Like the buzzwords being thrown all around. How is it what's the actual reality in Indonesia?
Okay, so as I mentioned in the early section of this interview, Indonesia is a paradox when it comes to the automation because we have huge population, but the automation needs to somehow enhance their capacities. So if we're talking about in Europe or in USA, the minimum wage of the people is really high compared to Indonesia. That's why automation works in Europe or in USA. But in Indonesia, the minimum wage is so low. The robot price, the IoT price needs to somehow justify the ROI for the company. And in Indonesia, in order to make it works, you need to justify the ROI makes sense. Meaning, if the minimum wage is around 100 Singapore dollar per month, so you need to adjust your price. Of course, if your device or your system is made from, I don't know, Europe or made on Japan or USA, the overhead cost will not cover.
Yeah.
The price will be too high.
That's right.
That's why lots of the Industry 4.0 products that's being successfully deployed in Europe cannot be 100% successfully in Indonesia because of the price. So in order to overcome this, we need to have a partnership with a local principal because they know the exact situation and they know how to customize in order to match the price requirement. And I think that's one of the main consideration or main challenges in Indonesia regarding the Industry 4.0.
Okay, I see. All right. So when coming to that and implementation, yes, cost definitely it's one. How about like what's the reaction when you walk into the factory and say, okay, we're going to automate. Here's the IoT stuff. You need to pack. So how do they react to it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Uh-huh.
If the person is coming from the grassroots or the machine operator, they will be scared.
Take away our job, right?
Yeah, because what they think is, oh no, this machine going to take away my job. But if you're talking about the middle class management, what they feel is like they're also scared as well. Because machine cannot lie. All of the data will send into the cloud servers and all of the data will be transparent. Meaning the mistakes and the hidden data that they are being sugar-coated to the bosses will be revealed.
Yes.
That's what they're really afraid. That's for middle class management. But for the upper class management, what they feel sometimes is they are interested, but don't know where to start.
True.
So if you want to convince the Indonesian corporates to adopt Industry 4.0, the next thing is you need to have a network to the upper class management, and you need to use the baby language of your product because they don't really care about the sophisticated terms. All they really care is about the practicality of it.
True.
And how to start, how to train their employees, how to deploy your product so it can have a real impact to your company. Not a rare case in Indonesia. You install an IoT device, it only works for 2 months or 3 months. After 3 months, it will be removed. The one of the most common factor is because they don't feel comfortable for using your device.
Okay.
So even though as simple as upload Excel file for one features, some of the Indonesians machine operator or supervisor feels that uploading Excel is too complicated for them. Yeah, that's where we need to adjust our service and our product.
Okay. So how do you crack the code in this case? Is it secret they cannot review?
It's one of our secret sauce, but I will share it anyway.
Okay.
So one of our common method first is we are treating ourselves as a third-party engineering. So if you are working, so it's an analogy. If you're working in the logistics sector, they have 3PL, third-party logistic, meaning even though they are third-party, they are act as one of the employees in the customer factories. So the collaboration and the communication will be done seamlessly rather than if we do that by online meeting or we do that by weekly meeting. So what we do is we put 1 or 2 of our engineers on sites every day in order to see the deployment is being successfully deployed or not. If we don't do that, the communication will be closed. Because if one people think, oh, this is too complicated for us, and if your engineer is not there, they feel too lazy to contact you, even by WhatsApp.
I see.
Because the culture in Indonesian workspace is if they have obstacle, if they have a challenge, they have communication directly, not by online, not by WhatsApp, or something like that. So it's very important.
I see. Still very face to face.
Yeah, face to face. Yeah.
I think that's the Asian culture
Yeah.
of like relationship building. Yeah, not so much. Okay, WhatsApp me. Or I think that's also the new generation. Yeah, kind of thing. Okay. So now maybe we talk about the consultants since we talked a bit about third party and all that. How about the consultants and vendors? Do you think they are overselling the technology or that they are not ready to use yet?
Well, if you're talking about the consultant, all the other corporates in Indonesia who provide the automation or Industry 4.0, most of them are providing a bubble technology. Do you know about bubble technology? So bubble means the technology in reality is at this level, but they oversell it.
Like hype it up.
Yeah, hype it up,
like,
yeah.
5G.
Yes,
There's
yes.
no real use case for 5G, but then
Yes.
everybody's like, okay, 5G is the way to go.
Yeah, they feel like it's become a silver bullet. But in reality, if we want to adopt the IoT, we need to have collaboration between the machine and the human.
Yes.
So the IoT itself is not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
It will solve a problem if the people itself commit to the change.
Yeah.
If not, it will not going to work. Trust me. And most of the company in Indonesia, like consultant or other corporates, what they are selling is like SAP, for example. It's really overselling. So when they try to use the product itself, it will not work because the expectation is like this, but in reality, it's too complicated. So it will lower their expectation, and because of the challenge of the data complexity, they feel too lazy to use it, and that's where the laziness of adopting the technology come.
I see.
That is the main factor of the resistance.
Okay. So for leaders who want to actually bridge this gap between traditional maintenance, they
Yes.
want to move from reactive to
Preventive.
and predictive. What's a practical step that you can share?
So one practical step that I can share is to benchmark the other corporates. Because if no one ever adopting this technology, they will not use it either.
I see.
So you need to provide the evidence first.
Yes.
Even though these corporates is come from abroad, from Vietnam, for example, or from Philippines, for example, it's okay. Even though it's from overseas, but if the industrial field is similar, they will try to listen. And if you have this kind of evidence, your justification will be much more stronger. If you're talking about the production loss, if you're talking about the opportunity cost, it will make sense to them because they knew someone out there already experienced it. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, but it's very difficult for a startup, right?
It
you
is.
have no use case,
It is.
real use case yet.
Yeah, it is. That's why I think for our startups, we need to have global networking as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because if your own country, there's so few people implementing it, you need to find it outside your countries. I can guarantee most of the developed country already deployed your solution. And that is one of the most important thing for making the MVP or making the product market fit in Indonesia.
Yeah. And would you say like for these companies, would they look up to like a Western kind of use case or maybe in ASEAN context?
Okay, so because my clients is coming from Japanese corporates, so we need to see from Asian corporates. Even though the Asian corporate itself is having a different industrial field, it's okay. If it's Japanese, then they will follow the example.
I see. Yeah, because there's this connection.
Yeah,
there.
this connection, yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so now we are moving on to the villain part, like the
Okay.
resistance to change,
Okay.
because that's very strong in culture. Because you need to change like the human who is going to implement a technology.
Yep.
So in the maintenance world, who would you say is the villain? Is it budgets? Is it culture or skills or something else?
Okay. I can think of 3 factors for resistance in the IoT sector in Indonesia. The first one is cost. Because cost is what makes Indonesian market is Indonesian market. It's a commodity type of market. You need to have a lower cost as possible. The second one is about the time. If you're talking about the corporates in Indonesia, sir, what is the priority type of this project? All of them will say it is very priority. It is urgent. All of it will say it. So you need to have a special response teams. If there are any adjustment, if there are any dynamics in the features, you need to act swiftly. So because time is really important in Indonesia.
Okay.
And the third one is the rejection from the grassroots itself. As I mentioned earlier, if you're talking about Industry 4.0 or IoT, you need to have collaboration from machine and human.
Yeah.
The IoT itself is not silver bullet. You need to have a commitment from the human. And the commitment comes from the grassroots first. And this grassroots will decide whether your product makes sense or not. Even though the grassroots people or the machine operator will always follow the order from the manager or from the director,
Yeah.
but if the technology itself is not make sense to them, they will not use it.
True. You just set it aside and
Yeah.
tell the manager, okay, this is no good. Don't
Yes,
use.
correct.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So that's your point about partnering with the grassroots,
Yes.
being there for them,
Yep.
helping them to give the support that they need, right, to make your product successful. Okay. All right. So for like adoption wise, you did say that it takes time. There's some resistance. So who would you think is to blame for the adoption's pace? Is it the grassroots or the executives?
I think all of the elements in the corporates have their have their blame. For example, for the grassroots, we can blame them because they are resistant to change, even though this technology will make their life easier. But because it's a different thing, they will not try to learn about it. We can blame them about this. But the management level, the middle management or the upper level management is also available for blaming, because the mindset of the management level is not always looking for the long term.
Yeah.
Most of the management level try to see the problem only in the short term. So we need to somehow adjust their mindset from the short term only into the long term. Again, if you're talking about maintenance, if you're talking about the IoT, we need to have this product installed at least 1 year to make the impact become a reality in their company. And from that 1 year time, we can justify the ROI of our device.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So, talking about like personal story now, so like there are a lot of challenges and
Yes.
difficulties in building a business. So was there ever a moment that you thought, okay, this is it, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm just gonna throw in the towel?
To tell the truth, never.
Never.
Never,
Wow.
yeah, because I make this company directly after I graduate from my master degree,
I see.
and I never think about quitting my own company.
So just how to convince the customers, how to
Yes.
make it better, right?
Yes.
Very admirable.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because back again, my company is a vehicle for me to achieve my life dream.
I see.
If I don't have my company, I will not achieve my life dream. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So let's fast forward now to the future, like maybe 5 years. What do you think the future of the maintenance landscape or the IoT landscape will be like in Indonesia?
I think it will be better because first, the socialization of the new technology is becoming better in Indonesia. And there are lots of new initiatives regarding the Industry 4.0 in Indonesia right now.
Yes.
Regarding the maintenance itself, well, it totally depends on the management level. If the management level not think it is important, then it will become never important. So what you need to do is you need to have a connection for the management level in order to influence them to adopt this technology. If lots of the management level in Indonesian corporates adopt this kind of mindsets, so it will become better in the next 5 years. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so if you were talking to like a young engineer or manager on the ground who is interested to go into this field,
Okay.
what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Okay, my one piece of advice is find your ikigai. So, do you know of
The Japanese
ikigai?
thing,
Yeah,
yes.
ikigai. It's a combination of one thing that will make you money, one thing that you love, one thing that the world needs, and one thing that makes you happy. So that is ikigai. You need to have ikigai. If you making a startups, but your only motivation is about money, I don't think it will survive. At least in Indonesia, yeah. Because Indonesia is not for beginner. Yeah, you need to have a combination, lots of things in order to make your company works.
That's right. Interesting. Okay. So now we talk about legacy part. Maybe you could share who you draw inspiration from. If there's any like role model or who shaped the way you think and lead today.
Can I be honest? To tell the truth, my inspiration is the combination of two people,
Okay.
two fictional people, exactly. Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark.
You're a fan.
I'm a fan of DC and Marvel. So Tony Stark, this guy is really smart. He mastered all of the engineerings, but he is really arrogant. I don't like the arrogant part, but I really like his innovative parts. The Bruce Wayne, he is really a philanthropist people. He's a philanthropist. He has a good heart. He has a good principle, and he somehow managed to have a good good amount of resource. So this amount of combination of these two people is what inspired me.
Wow, very interesting. Okay. So now let's say Revelware, right? If it disappeared tomorrow, just fictional. So what's the one impact that you want people to remember your company or you for?
So one thing that I want people to remember of our company is our innovation.
Yes.
Because I'm being sick when people look down of Indonesian capability of technology. When I was in the Saudi last year, I represented Indonesia. I was the only one from Indonesia, and I'm presenting our technology. And one of the native Saudi people said to me is, "Why do you make that kind of technology? Isn't Indonesia only good about making instant noodle and mates?" Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I feel really hurt. Yeah. So if Revelware is gone, I want to be remembered as a pioneer of innovation in Indonesia. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you are making good strides in that area already.
Thank you very much. I'm trying step by step.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Randy, for dropping by Maintenance Bistro.
Thank you very much as well.
Yeah, I really love our conversation. So interesting and insightful. I learned a lot. Yeah. So tech adoption is really not just about machines, right? It's a lot about culture, adoption, and then persistence.
Yes.
Yeah, and network.